When you were 7 years old, a boy twice your size had you pinned against a wall with his forearm across your throat. You couldn't breathe. You had maybe 3 seconds before something worse happened. So you crossed your eyes, puffed your cheeks, and made the single most ridiculous face a human being has ever produced. He laughed. His grip loosened. You ran. That was the moment you learned what you actually were. Not a fighter, not a farmer, not the kind of small that becomes strong eventually. You were something else, something that most people spend their whole lives not understanding is a skill at all. You can make anyone feel exactly what you wanted them to feel at exactly the moment you needed them to feel it. And in a world where the wrong emotion in the wrong room could get you killed, that was either useless or the most powerful thing imaginable. It's 1492, and you were born in a ditch outside Bristol. Not a metaphor. An actual ditch during a rainstorm because your mother didn't make it to shelter in time. She called it an omen. She was right, just not in the way she thought. Your father is a tanner. He smells permanently of urine, which is what the trade requires, and he has opinions about your future that do not involve performing at dinner tables. You are the 4th child and the smallest. 2 of your siblings are buried before they turn 5. Your mother looks at you, sometimes with an expression you can't quite read, something between prayer and apology, and you understand it without being able to name it. She's trying to figure out how you survive. So are you. At 9, you start performing for real. Not for money, for survival in a smaller, more immediate sense. You discover you can fall without getting hurt. Not stumble. Fall deliberately from height on a hard ground and come up clean without flinching, which to a watching crowd looks like something between impossible and miraculous. You discover you can hear a person's voice once and repeat it back to them so accurately that they stop whatever they're doing and go completely still for a moment, uncertain of what just happened. You discover that when you make a group of people laugh, the anger in the room, the low-level anger that exists in every room where people have hard lives and nowhere to put it, dissolves for as long as the laughter lasts. And you discover that you can produce that laughter on purpose, aimed at specific moments, like a tool. You're 9 years old, and you have a tool that most adults will never develop. You join a traveling company at 14. 6 performers, a cart, a circuit of market towns between Bristol and Worcester. You sleep under the cart. You eat last. You carry the equipment. In exchange, you watch everything. You watch which jokes land and which die. You watch how the same material plays differently before noon than after, differently on market day than on feast day, differently when the crowd has eaten than when it hasn't. You learn that the joke itself is almost never the point. The point is what the joke does to the room. The specific moment where everyone breathes out at once, the tension releases, and for a few seconds a crowd of strangers becomes something almost like a single organism. The person who can produce that moment controls the room. And the person who controls the room is, just then, the most powerful person in it. You are 14 and sleeping under a cart, and you have understood something that courtiers with titles will spend their entire careers failing to grasp. You are 18 when a steward from a lord's household in Worcestershire approaches you after a fair performance and offers you a room above the horses, regular meals, and a modest wage to perform at dinners and gatherings. You accept before he finishes the offer. Inside is where everything happens. Outside, under the cart, you are invisible. Inside, you have an audience that matters. The first lesson takes about a week to learn. Everything depends on reading your Lord correctly, and reading him correctly means reading him before you enter the room. You develop a habit immediately. An hour before every dinner, every gathering, you find someone who has seen him recently. A kitchen boy, a stable hand, a visiting messenger who passed him in the corridor. What is his mood? What happened today? Is he drinking more than usual or less? What arrived in the correspondence this morning? You are building an information network that nobody sees because nobody imagines the jester needs information. You are the fool. Fools don't strategize. Fools don't build intelligence systems. Except you do. You do it every day. And by the end of your first year in the household, you know more about the inner workings of this lord's life than his own steward does. The night it nearly ends comes at 22. There is a dispute between your lord and a neighboring lord about a boundary. Something you weren't told about because nobody tells the jester about politics. And at dinner you make a joke that names the neighbor in a context that reads, given the current situation, as a deliberate slight from your lord toward his enemy. You don't know this. The room knows it immediately. The silence that follows is a specific kind of silence. Not the comfortable pause before laughter, but the kind where everyone is waiting to see what the powerful person at the head of the table is going to do. Your lord stares at you. Not with anger, not yet. With something colder, the assessment of someone deciding whether you are an asset or a liability. And you have exactly as long as it takes him to complete that assessment to change the answer. You turn the joke on yourself. Immediately, completely, without hesitation. You become the stupidest man in the room, stumbling over your own explanation, making yourself smaller and more ridiculous with every word, transforming the joke into something that is entirely at your own expense and has nothing to do with anyone else. It takes 3 minutes. 3 minutes of the most precise, most desperate performance of your life. Watching the temperature of the room drop degree by degree from crisis back toward ordinary. Your lord's expression shifts. He laughs, short, not warm. The laugh of a man who has decided you are still useful. The room follows. The dinner continues. You don't sleep that night. You lie in your room above the horses, and you understand, for the first time with complete clarity, what your position actually is. You have no protection, no contract, no institution, no status that limits what can be done to you. You exist entirely at the pleasure of one man's mood. And you have just learned how thin the margin between employed and destroyed actually is. From that night forward, you never enter a room unprepared again. Word travels the way water finds its level. By 27, a lord of higher rank makes inquiries. Your current lord releases you. Can't refuse without looking like he's hoarding above his station. The new household is larger, richer, more dangerous. The costume improves to proper motley, party-colored, bells at the collar, and the costume is the central paradox of your career. The outfit that marks you as the lowest status person in any room also gives you the highest freedom of speech. A courtier criticizing the lord's decisions risks dismissal or worse. You can make the same criticism as long as you make everyone laugh first and make it look like foolishness. The fool's license is real and documented, but conditional on one thing. The performance must never stop being funny. The moment your lord stops laughing and starts hearing what you actually said, you are not a jester anymore. You're just someone who said something dangerous while wearing bells. The years accumulate. 30, 33, in a London household near enough to power that you can feel its pull. Courtiers moving through the room like weather. Names spoken with the particular careful weight of people who know those names matter. You watch them the way you watched everything at 14. How they hold their bodies. What makes them laugh and what makes them go still. You are preparing for something no one has told you is coming, studying for an entrance examination that doesn't officially exist. It comes at 36. A court official attends a banquet, watches your performance without expression, and speaks to your lord the following morning. 3 days later you are informed, not invited, informed, that you will present yourself at court. No instructions, no preparation. This is how power communicates with people in your position. As a simple fact about what will happen next, delivered to someone who does not have opinions about it. The royal court of Henry VII is nothing like you expected and exactly as frightening as you feared. Smaller physically than you imagined. Louder. The geometry of it all wrong. Everyone angled toward the king, tracking him in their peripheral vision at all times, adjusting their behavior in real time based on readings so subtle they happen below the level of conscious thought. And the king himself is there, at the first performance, watching you with eyes that have the particular quality of someone who has survived betrayal more than once and developed very accurate instruments for detecting it. He is reading you. Right now, while you perform, he is reading you. You can feel it the way you feel wind before it reaches you. You do the work. Every technique you've refined across 20 years, the crowd reading, the physical precision, the timing built from 10,000 small adjustments in 100 different rooms. The court laughs. The king's expression shifts by a fraction. Not a smile exactly. An acknowledgement. He doesn't dismiss you. That's how you know you've passed. 5 years at court. You perform for Henry VII 3 times a week and learn in the way you learned every other lord, with greater precision and no margin for error. Which topics produce the thin smile, and which produce the stillness before anger. That mockery of foreign courts is safe, but mockery of his decisions requires the framing of a fool's parable. Deniable, something that could always be called foolishness. That the grief about his son Arthur surfaces in the particular way he sets his jaw during certain meals, and you know exactly what kind of performance helps and what kind makes the evening worse. You carry this knowledge only as protection, because in this room, knowing is surviving. At 41, your body starts sending messages you cannot acknowledge. 25 years of deliberate falls have settled into your knees and back as a damage that worsens in cold weather. 9 months of every year in England. You perform in pain at least half the time. Nobody knows. You are not a person with a bad back. You are a function. Functions don't have bad backs. The cough starts on a Monday in October. By Wednesday, it has settled into your chest with a weight that tells you something different is happening this time. By Friday, you cannot perform. This is when you know the answer to the question you've been asking yourself since 41, and the answer is not many more winters. The infection moves fast. By Sunday morning, it is over. The king is informed by afternoon. He sends no message. Your room is clear by Tuesday. A new performer found within the week. The court cannot wait. The function must be filled. Your name appears in the household account for 23 years and then stops, mid-ledger, no notation. The ledger continues. Your entries do not. Your daughter is told by letter 3 weeks after the fact. Nobody thought to send word sooner. She is 17. She barely knew you. You appeared twice a year, smelling of wood smoke and cold stone, sat with her for an afternoon, and disappeared back into a world that had no room for her. You hope she remembered the afternoon on the riverbank near her mother's village when she was 6, when she laughed so hard at something you did that she fell sideways into the water and came up still laughing. You hope she has that. It's more than most people leave. That was the job. You walked into a room where the wrong word could end you. Every day for 23 years, and you made it look effortless. You knew more about the most powerful man in England than his own advisors did, and used it only to survive one more performance, then one more. But on a Sunday night in 1501, in the great hall of the Palace of Westminster, with a political crisis sitting unspoken in the room the way it always did, you made Henry VII laugh until he had to set down his cup. The tension broke. Everyone breathed. You did that. The man born in a ditch in Bristol who learned at 7 that making someone laugh could stop a fist. That happened. Nobody wrote it down, but happened. If this is the kind of story you want more of, subscribe. Every week, another life that history forgot. See you there.